Welcome to the Grode's Online Community Management Podcast series. I'm Steve, User Experience Team Lead, and with this episode, we're kicking off a brand new long-running series.
Hello everyone, I'm Lisa, and I work as a product manager. Exactly, Steve. Over the next 19 episodes, we'll be diving deep into one of the most important, yet perhaps least understood topics in the digital world, building and managing online communities, from A to Z.
Absolutely. This is not a topic that can be covered in a single episode. That's why in this series, we'll discuss every step of the process, from the birth of an idea to welcoming the first members, from writing community rules to coming up with ideas to keep the community alive, and even taking the community offline and bringing it to real life through events.
What is our goal? By the end of these 19 episodes, everyone listening will have a practical and useful guide to build and manage their own successful, vibrant, and valuable community from scratch. We'll answer not just what to do, but also why do it, and how do we know it's working? In other words, we'll take an X-ray of what makes a community tick.
And we're starting this enjoyable journey from the very basics, right at the heart of the matter. What is a community, and why is it so important for a brand or an individual in this digital age? In this first episode, we'll discuss why a brand needs more than just customers. It needs a living, breathing heart, a community.
What a great starting point. Let's get started. Steve, what comes to mind when you hear the word community? For a product or a brand, for example.
The first thing that comes to mind is that wonderful café analogy. You know, that intimate place where the barista knows your name and your order by heart? We product people are always talking about customer loyalty and customer churn rate. That café is exactly what those words mean in real life. People don't just go there for coffee. They go there to feel like they belong. That's exactly what an online community is. It's not a cold billboard. It's a living organism.
That's a really good point. From my PM perspective, the cure for loneliness aspect is really striking. We constantly conduct surveys and monitor user behavior, but we can't measure how alone a user feels while using our product. What do they feel when they encounter a problem? Helplessness? That's where the community fills the void. Plus, it reveals things we'd never see through official channels. For example, a member might use our product in a shortcut way we'd never think of, and then go share it with others. That's priceless.
And this connection is literally the insurance of the business. As a user experience designer, my biggest nightmare is the reaction we get when we make a mistake. It happened to us recently. There was an issue after an update, and the community literally became our shield. As soon as the complaint started, our community manager brought the issue to the forum. Thanks to the experienced members there, whom we call our super helpers, they helped us find temporary solutions. Thanks to our transparency and the constructive attitude of other members, no one panicked. Think about it, Lisa. What would a company without a community do? They'd publish a cold apology and wait to be lynched on social media. We talked to them, established a dialogue. You can't buy that with money.
That's an amazing example. It shows that a community isn't just there for the good times. So what makes a community a community? For example, helping others. A new user asks a complicated question, and before we can even respond, an experienced member walks them through it step by step with screenshots. Do you know what that means? It's basically user-to-user orientation. Sometimes it's more effective than the help documents my team prepares.
Absolutely. For me, that directly translates to reduce support costs, but even more importantly, working toward a common goal. Last quarter, we launched a beta program for a new module and announced to the community, come join us in developing this feature together.
Yeah, I remember that process. The turnout was incredible. The feedback we got was the kind of thing we couldn't have discovered even after weeks of research. People didn't just say, I don't like it. They made specific suggestions like, if we move this button here, it will save accountants like me 2 steps. That's an invaluable resource.
Exactly. And the create rituals thing is also very important. Rituals are like an invisible glue that binds a group together. They create a sense of expectation and belonging. For example, the first Wednesday of every month is Feature Request Day. This isn't just a regular idea box. On that day, we open a special thread, everyone writes down the feature they want most, and everyone votes on each other's ideas. This is amazing data for me when I'm planning the roadmap. I'm not guessing. I'm seeing users' priorities directly. Users also say, wow, our voices are being heard. In fact, when we implemented the most voted idea, the member who suggested it received a record number of thank you messages. Or take our Friday bug hunt event. We present it not as a chore, but as a fun treasure hunt. And the result? The community helped us test scenarios our quality team couldn't even imagine and find critical bugs. This isn't just fun. It makes people feel like they're part of the team and creates an incredibly productive environment. What about platform selection? This is one of the most critical decisions. As a UX designer, I focus on accessibility and the longevity of information. The 1-9-90 rule comes to mind. 1% creates, 9% engage, 90% observe. In a chaotic feed like Facebook, the valuable information produced by that 1% can easily get lost, which is confusing for the 90% who are watching.
I completely agree. As a PM, I'm obsessed with algorithms and data ownership. The algorithm issue is this. The posts in your Facebook group could suddenly start showing up for only 5% of your members overnight due to an update made by the platform. All your effort, all your investment goes down the drain because you don't set the rules of the game. Data ownership is even a deeper issue. On Facebook, you only get superficial metrics like likes and comments. But on your own platform, you can seek answers to questions that turn into business intelligence, like which topics reduce support requests, which features are discussed the most, and what are the common characteristics of our most active members. Imagine combining that data with our CRM system. That's why a searchable, categorized forum like Discourse, where the data is entirely ours, is a far more strategic move to nurture that valuable 1% of content creators and preserve the value they create for years to come.
True. Still, the collaborative feel of instant messaging platforms like Discord can't be denied. That's great for the 9% of the audience who are more engaged. Maybe the solution is a hybrid approach. We use a forum for in-depth discussions, knowledge archives, and help documents. We could set up a Discord server for instant messaging, socializing, and live events like our Friday bug hunt.
That's a great analogy. It makes strategic sense. But let's not overlook the most important warning. Let's underline it in bold. Don't become platform dependent. This is the first rule of community management. No matter which platform we choose, we must create an email list for that community. Because that Discord server, that Facebook group, isn't ours. It's a rented storefront. That email list, however, is our owned property. The shop owner can raise the rent tomorrow, restrict access, or kick us out. But our own property is always ours. When a platform crashes, arbitrarily changes its rules, or, in the worst-case scenario, shuts down completely, the only reliable, unfiltered, and direct channel to reach everyone is that list. This is more than just a plan B. It's the community's insurance policy.
And now we come to the most important role, community manager. They're much more than a moderator. They're like a host. For me, they're the user's true friend. They're user advocate. They're the person who conveys the why and how they feel behind the feedback. This person in this role needs to have incredible empathy and listening skills because they need to understand not only what is written, but also what is not written.
For me, they are the brand's most strategic employee in the field, my business partner. They analyze the qualitative data they receive from the community and present it to us as actionable insights. That's why analytical thinking is just as critical as empathy. They should also act like a sociologist. They should know how to manage the brutally honest member and channel them into a constructive direction, or plan how to slowly engage the massive silent majority in conversation with small, low-risk questions. They don't just say, users didn't like the new design. They say, I analyzed 120 comments in the community. 80% of users' main issue isn't the colors, it's the location of the X button in the main menu. This is slowing down workflows by 3 minutes. This sentence changes a product manager's world.
This is the storytelling reporting part. It's not just about presenting numbers to management, but also sharing the stories behind those numbers. A shortcut shared by our new member, Mr. Frank, enabled our experienced member, Miss Jessica, to automate a task she had been doing manually for 2 years. This is the value we create.
And this makes the return on investment, ROI, tangible and measurable. It turns an abstract concept like engagement into a concrete business case. Let's break it down. The most obvious one is the reduction in support costs. When one member answers another member's question, it means one less ticket for our support team. Over time, this accumulated knowledge prevents hundreds of similar tickets from being created in the future. This allows our expert support team to focus on truly complex and value-added issues rather than repetitive tasks. The increase in innovation speed is another multiplier effect. Essentially, we have a 24/7 focus group. This helps us reduce risks in our product roadmap because we develop features not just for users, but with them. Finally, the increase in brand loyalty is perhaps the most valuable long-term gain. This isn't just about repeat purchases, it's about creating brand ambassadors. These people organically recommend you to their circles, which directly reduces your customer acquisition costs because they feel like they are part of the brand story. In short, yes, these are not just nice-to-have things. They are the direct financial results of a well-managed community.
To sum it up, building a community is really like growing a garden. It requires patience and effort. You plant the seeds, water them, and understand that different plants have different needs.
And when that garden grows, it doesn't just give you fruit. It turns into a whole ecosystem around your brand that nourishes it, protects it, and keeps it standing even in the stormiest weather. It's much more than a marketing asset. It becomes the living, breathing heart of your brand.
That's a great summary, Lisa. Let's leave our listeners with the final question of the first episode of our series. Does your brand or product have a heart, or is it just a facade? In the next episode, we'll discuss what you need to know about online communities. Don't miss it.